God's grace, God's grace, God's grace, God's grace, God's grace, God's grace. There ain't nothing better than God's grace, God's grace, God's grace.
You know, for other inspiring entrepreneurs, they may not necessarily be an attorney, but the same rules apply to whatever you go into. What would be kind of like, well, some advice you would give anybody that they want to subscribe to excellence, but they don't know all the things that you know because you've been there, done that. What would be some advice you would give somebody like that?
Yeah, well, I can't give everything because we'll be here for literally days and weeks, but I will give a few nuggets. I think one thing that's very important is service. We have to be servants. A lot of people, they think that when you're an entrepreneur or when you have your own job, you're working for yourself. That is not the case. Right. When you're an entrepreneur and your name is on the business, you're working for your clients, you're working for the community, you're working for your family. So we have to be servants, and we have to give just all the time, around the clock service for our clients, whether they're paying us or not. Because it's not a matter of what this client is paying me is going to dictate the kind of service that I provide to the client. I provide the best service, no matter if you're paying me 10% of what I'm owed, 100% of what I'm owed, or if you're not paying me anything at all. Because the way that God operates, it's all cyclical. You may invest in somebody and they don't pay you anything in January, and then 10 months down the road, you may get a similar job, spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe an hour, but then you get a windfall of everything that was owed to you from all the work that you did prior to that. So it's all about service. Pick up your phone. If a client is calling you, answer it. Even if you just answer and say, hey, what's going on? I'll call you back. I'm in a meeting. That communication is service. The client knows that you care about them. You're accessible. You're straightforward. You're honest. So we have to be servants. That's number one. Or that's not number one as in the most important, but that's just one nugget. The second nugget that I think is crucial is having the right mental attitude. And I got this from Dennis Kimbrough of Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. He wrote a book that almost changed my life when I read it in 2017. And he says that when you're an entrepreneur, it's all about the mind. So when problems come, which inevitably they will, you have to have the right mental attitude and how you address it. So, example, you may be hosting an event, and the cake for the event may not come at the right time. So you can approach it in very different ways. You can throw a tantrum and just say, oh man, it ain't gonna work. I'm just gonna give up. I'm not gonna even go out and face the audience because I don't have the cake that everyone was hoping for. Or you can have the right mental attitude. And when the caterer tells you that they don't have the right cake, you can say, caterer, thank you. Thank you for this problem that I'm going to turn into a solution and turn into an advantage in this event. And that mental attitude, that right mental attitude, I know it may sound a little quirky. It's like, why am I going to tell someone who's giving me a problem, thank you? But problems are opportunities for us to exercise faith, to exercise commitment, and to exercise creativity. So the more you approach your problems as opportunities, the more powerful you will become. Because the more problems come, it's like, I'm used to it. I'm immune to it. I go in expecting problems, but my faith, my creativity, and my commitment to service is going to get me through the problem that's expected. And then the third nugget, which is the most important nugget, I saved it for last, but it's God. God has to be the center of your entrepreneurship endeavor. And by God, I mean ethics. A lot of us as African American people, we're very talented, but where we fall short is our ethics, not doing what we need to do for our clients. They give us money and we go out and spend it without doing the work that they paid us to do. We have to reverse that. Client comes first because God comes first, and God sees everything. So God has to be first. Our ethics has to be very important, and treat the small client with the same amount of integrity as you would your large, quote unquote, important client, because it's all about God. God created that small client the same way he created the big client. And sometimes the small clients can turn into big clients. So we have to keep God first. We have to have ethics and how we deal with people, because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have ethics, what is that? That's corruption, it's fraud. Talent without ethics is corruption and fraud. Gotta have ethics. Gotta have God.
Anything you want to leave with the audience, just to try today if they could, like implement something in their everyday schedule to help them with 3 of those nuggets you can think of?
You have to continue to learn and grow. You said it. I graduated from Emory School of Law, but surprisingly, the most important things that I learned after I left law school, after I left Jacksonville State University. The things I learned on the streets, dealing with people, talking to people, learning from people who've been in business longer than I have. And sometimes you can learn through asking questions. Sometimes you can learn through just observing, because communication is not just verbal. Sometimes, or most times, communication is nonverbal. So you have to have a habit of being inquisitive, of observing, of trying to learn, researching on Google how to solve these problems that come up, how to do your taxes, how to start an LLC, how to get creative in your marketing. Get some books, go to the library, invest in your knowledge, because your knowledge is power. Your knowledge is going to dictate what you can charge for your service. So you have to continue to grow, continue to learn. Don't think just because you're done with school, you're done with education, you're done with learning. Education is perpetual.
God's grace, God's grace, God's grace, God's grace, God's grace, God's grace. There ain't nothing better than God's grace, God's grace, God's grace, God's grace. By our heads and say grace, but for every meal.